To discuss it all, roll call columnist, friend of the program, Jon Allen, joins us from the CBS News Washington Bureau. Jon, we do appreciate the time. Now that we stand roughly 12 hours out from what we saw last night, questions about winners and losers and perhaps what it all meant. So first, with regard to, well, the optics, I suppose, of a win or a loss, who do you think stood taller?
Elaine Quijano, definitely.
And by the way, a deserved shout out to our colleague and friend here at CBSN. A great job by Elaine.
The spotlight was on her last night. I thought she did a fantastic job. But as far as the debate went, Mike Pence blew Tim Kaine out of the water. I think it was unexpected that Pence would do as well as he did. There were tough questions for him to answer about things that Donald Trump had said. In fact, Tim Kaine pressed that issue repeatedly. And Pence didn't take the bait. He refused to get into the weeds and into the trenches of those fights, none of which would have been good for him. Look, some of this is stylistic. I think debates are often popularity contests, who comes off better. But Pence showed what a stable and coherent Republican message looks like. That was very good for him. Tim Kaine looked a little irritated at the beginning of the debate. And he had some stronger moments later, but this definitely goes to Pence.
Strategically, Jon, it was an interesting choice. Entering last night's debate, certainly the Clinton campaign had as good a week, perhaps, as the Trump campaign had a bad one. The numbers all suggested that things were looking up across the board in key battleground states, Ohio perhaps notwithstanding. And yet we saw, especially as you mentioned there at the beginning, Senator Kaine on the offensive and seemingly confused as to why Governor Pence would not engage, would not defend Donald Trump's various issues that the senator was repeatedly raising. What'd you make of that strategy, especially out of the gate?
I mean, on one level, it's a really good strategy in that there's no good answer for Mike Pence. There's no way to say that Donald Trump hasn't said those things. I mean, he did try to say that, which looked ridiculous a couple of times. If he owns those things, it makes Mike Pence look bad. So in that way, beyond the debate, and I think we'll hear a lot about this in ads coming forward and a lot from the post-debate spin, I think it's a reasonable strategy. I'm not sure that Tim Kaine in that moment prosecuted it well. He didn't look like a happy warrior. Mike Pence is very good at that happy warrior imaging in that game. And, so I think we'll have to wait to see. But one thing that I think is lost in this discussion is that Mike Pence's steadiness is a huge contrast against Donald Trump, and one that doesn't favor Donald Trump. So in a way, you could look at the sort of winners to losers in this as Donald Trump loses the most because he has the most to lose, then Kaine because he had a bad debate performance. Pence is a winner because he beat Tim Kaine and sets himself up a little better for 2020. But Hillary Clinton now enters the next debate with people having seen what a conservative who can articulate a more coherent Republican platform and do it in a steady way looks like, and it ain't Donald Trump.
And certainly, perhaps, if Mike Pence perhaps steadied a jittery base, then with regard to Tim Kaine, and I realize this is but a vice presidential debate. I realize we have a second presidential debate coming in just 4 days, but did Tim Kaine do any damage to Hillary Clinton last night?
I don't think he did any damage to Hillary Clinton. There wasn't any moment where he said something that made him look like he was distancing from the candidate, which would have been very bad. There was one good answer he had where he talked about the Clinton Foundation that was sort of a pushback on the things against the Clinton Foundation. That's probably the most cogent and aggressive argument in favor of the Clinton Foundation that we've heard on the campaign trail this year from anyone. So I don't think he did her any damage other than to the extent that people look at her and say, well, maybe she should have picked somebody else as her number two. Maybe that's a bad judgment call. But I think most people know that a debate is but one measure of a candidate.
A surprising moment in the immediate aftermath here on our air. Frank Luntz, the GOP pollster, was sitting with 28 uncommitted voters in Ohio, and he asked them a zero-sum question allowing for equivalency issues, I do realize, but essentially asked them, of the 28 voters, and we're seeing footage of it right now, what's more important and perhaps more damning to you? Is it Hillary Clinton's email scandal, or is it the continuing issues Donald Trump has with the refusal to release his taxes? 28 people in that room, Jon, 25 people raised their hands saying that the emails are more damaging. What do you make of it?
I think it's been a message that's been driven very hard by the Republican Party against Hillary Clinton. It's an own goal, if you will, in politics. This is something she never needed to have dealt with had she not basically decided to hide her emails from the public. The fact that there's classified information in those emails, whether or not she knew that at the time, and I don't think she had any reason to believe that there was classified information in there. All of those things are bad for her. I mean, look, it would be much better to not have those things going on. Donald Trump not releasing his taxes, I think, was something that was very abstract until we saw those sort of top-line numbers from the New York Times report, where you could see that he'd claimed a $916 billion loss in 1 year. And I actually think the stronger argument against Trump, and the one you'll hear more from Democrats over the next couple of weeks, is not necessarily that he's bad on his taxes and he's hiding things on his taxes and he's using the law on his taxes, but rather that he wasn't quite the businessman he said he was.
The soccer reference, by the way, very much appreciated, John. Get you out of here on this one. Then, if last night perhaps Donald Trump was watching a candidate who was heavily criticized for how many times he interrupted Hillary Clinton last Monday, if he was watching last night, perhaps he saw exactly what repeated interruptions do appear to be and how they might frame performance. Meanwhile, perhaps new lines of attack opened for Hillary Clinton last night. So let's prognosticate, shall we? 4 days hence, what do you expect in St. Louis?
Mike Pence has laid out a model for Donald Trump to follow in terms of both the way that he talks about conservative issues and in his temperament. Two questions remain. One is, will Donald Trump see that as a model for his own behavior? And number two, can he actually follow the model? What we've seen from Trump is that he doesn't listen to anybody else's advice, and that he has a lot of difficulty containing and restraining himself. If there's a whole new Donald Trump on stage on Sunday, that'll benefit him. I'm not sure how much, though. I think there were a lot of people who were willing to give Trump a chance heading into that first debate that were turned off by what they saw.
Well, perhaps then a hole still yet to dig out from. Jon Allen there in D.C. as always. We appreciate the time.
It's a great pleasure, Josh. Thank you.
And again, 4 days away. Presidential debate number 2. Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump head-to-head this Sunday. It's Washington University, the place, St. Louis, Missouri, the city. Primetime coverage begins 7 p.m. Eastern. That'll be followed by the debate itself at 9 p.m. Again, all on Sunday, October 9th, all right here on CBSN.